All right, so I am live with Assimilate Azure, and there's some really cool stuff you can do with Azure. And one of the reasons why is because of the deep integration with GitHub code spaces and GitHub and all that stuff. And so that's one thing that I wanted to just touch on a little bit. So I'm going to sign into my Azure account here. And if I go into this section, uh, a few different things to point out. I think I pointed this out last time is that the cloud shell is not bad, right? Like it's a great place to just kick the tires and play around with different tools and all that kind of stuff. So I always recommend this. And in fact, you can do this, right? You can do AZ, and this will actually just help you run commands like whatever it is you need to do. The thing that I'm going to play around with a little bit today is that Azure has a concept of a function, like it's like serverless with AWS Lambda. And so look, if you see this right here, function app, you can see I have a couple of apps here that are doing different things. I'm going to go ahead and create a new one from scratch so you can see the process. So to start with, we're going to go ahead and say create, and I'm going to close this for now. And I'm going to go into my account, and I'm going to use one of these environments here. And notice that there's a couple options for how we build out a function app. Again, like a serverless application, you can do code and you can do Docker container. Um, and what's kind of fun about this is that they both have, there's pros and cons to this. I think what we're seeing is that many places are really converging on Docker containers. So if you are going to be deploying things in the cloud, probably you will use a container. That's just really the reality. But let's just stick with code for a second. And I'm going to call this Assimilate Azure. And let's just make it all one word, Assimilate Azure. And look, it actually will even put it onto a website, which is pretty slick. And look, for code, it's going to say, what stack do you want to run? We're going to do Python right here. Now, what is fun, because I do like .NET, is we could do this in C#. In fact, maybe I will. I might actually try that out as well. We can do Python, we can do Java, we can do PowerShell, we could do custom handler. I think custom handler probably would do something with Docker, but let's go ahead and do Python. And now we can pick the version, right? 3.9, 3.8, 3.7. Now that I've got this, we can choose what kind of OS we want to run, Linux, Windows, and then we can do either consumption, which is serverless, functions, premium. I'm assuming that's some kind of steady state, and then some kind of app service. I personally like the lazy things. I guess we could find out real quick. Let's just read the docs. So what does it say? Azure function hosting options. So consumption, this is scale automatically. Yes, I want that. I want cheap, cheap, cheap. And we want premium, which would be pre-warmed. Yeah, I don't need that for doing demos. Dedicated would be a long-running durable function. So yeah, I mean, sure, if I was doing some kind of long-running thing, but for demos, which is what I mostly do nowadays, I would do consumption plan. So let's go ahead and go to review and create here. And it looks like we have everything going. And now I can go ahead and I can do a create. Perfect. Now, a couple of things to point out here is that once you do this deployment, then you have some options about how to actually build out a Azure function. A few different things to be aware of would be that you could actually build it out inside of this console. That's one way to do it. Or you could actually go back into GitHub code spaces and actually configure it to run there. In fact, since it's going to take a second, although maybe it already is woken up. Let's see here. Refresh. So while this is spinning up, I'll show you what I mean. So if we go to this repo, Assimilate Azure, look, I actually have some stuff I was doing inside of here. Like this is an application I was working on earlier. So check this out. All we have to do is I go to my code space right here, and I can just get this thing cooking. Now, one of the things that I did that is actually pretty useful is that I was able to install integration with Azure inside of GitHub Codespaces. And so, in order to do this, what I did is I went to this extensions section here, and I did a search for Azure Functions, and I actually installed that extension. And once you do that, the extension will allow you to uh, build up exactly what it is you need to do and actually communicate and do the deployment into Azure. So I'm going to do two different ways, right? So I'm going to do it this way, and then I'm also going to do it the other way. So now that we've got this deployment complete, look what it says. It says the next thing you need to do is create a function. So it just provisioned it, which is a little bit weird, but I need to still create a function. So let's do a couple of different ways. First, we can create one here, and we can say develop in portal. So right, so we can say develop in portal, or we can develop in VS Code. Right, we have two different options here to actually work with it. Let's do develop in portal first, and then I can select HTTP trigger here. And so basically, this is just creating a web service that I can actually play around with. And here we go. We got this. And if we go to code and test, I believe it will give us some kind of console for us to play around with a little bit of code. Let's go ahead and try this out. Overview. So here's our monitoring, but we want to do code and test here. I don't know how long it takes for it to wake up. Here we go. So look, we can actually build, right? I could go inside of here and I could just build some stuff. Okay, look, we can build some functions. Like if you pass in a web request, it returns back a body. This function is triggered successfully. So we can see, in fact, that we could play around with it and change things. I assume it's going to get a JSON request, so it's kind of like a post request, I believe, that it's accepting. So you could do that. Like here's one you could just play around with it. I'm not good enough yet to know exactly all of the different ways that you write the Azure function. So I'm just going to get out of this, and I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to show you, look, I installed Azure Functions. And in fact, I'm going to put these all in my dev container. So we're going to say add dev container. We're going to add those files. So we're actually going to install universal default Linux. We're going to do universal here, and we're going to do a Azure CLI. Install CLI along with dependencies. So let's just install this. Let's do that, and then I'm gonna put these things inside of my dev container. We'll do that one. Add the dev container. We'll do that one. So then I'm not going to rebuild it now because I don't need it. I already have it installed here, but I'll just do a git status, and I'll say git add a dev container, and we can just say git add this other stuff. Okay, so let's check all this in. Adding Azure config. Okay. And I guess if I'm lazy, what I could also do is go back to repository here, go to settings, go to code spaces, set up prebuild. There we go, set up prebuild. And we can do this. Perfect. Great. So this is pre-building. Now, if I go back to this environments, one of the things that we can do next is that I should be able to look at this icon here, which says Azure. If I select it, I can go to the Functions app. See this, which is again pretty slick. I can pull this in and look, we have Assimilate Azure right there. Now look, I have functions. There's that trigger, right? If I wanted to do something with it, I could. But what I want to do is I want to make another one here. So I want to, let's see here. Functions, refresh. I don't know if I can build it, configure it, edit. We should be able to build another one inside of here. Let's delete this function because I don't even care about it anyway. Yes, we want to delete that one. What if I want to build a new one now? I don't see how you can right click, configure deployment, start, edit, open in portal. Let's open this in portal real quick. And let's see if I can, I think I have to do it one more time. I have to go to here and I have to go to functions and let's just delete this one. We don't care about that one. Let's make a new one. Oh, failed to delete it. It was probably already deleted. Let's create a new one. And instead of saying development portal, I'm going to do VS Code. And so in Azure Functions project, click Azure Functions. You'll be prompted, oh, create new projects. I think that's all I need to do. So let's try that. So if we say functions app, here we go. Create function app in Azure. That's what I care about right there. And we want to put a new name for this app function. We'll say GitHub Azure. Love that. GitHub Azure. We're going to do Python 3.9. We're going to do US East. And we can go to, there we go. It says create function app, creating storage. So basically it's going to create the entire ecosystem for me and build all this stuff out. Now these other ones, I'm kind of, because I was just playing around with this earlier today, I'm just going to go ahead and delete these other ones. Yep, I can delete that. And I can also delete this other one. And we'll delete that one. There we go. Perfect. Now, the part that is pretty fun is that I can actually go and watch this. I believe that it will create one inside of here. So it deleted the other one, created this one, and it should be behind the scenes now going to function app and there we go. See, I deleted those other ones. And it's going to create one called GitHub Azure, I believe. Let's see. There we go. So it did create that. Functions. But now the question is, we have two now, I think. Or is it, oh, there we go. So this one, see, there we see functions. If we say create, we want to do this. Create new project. Huh, why did it not do that? Something, configure deployment source. Is that what you have to do next? Oh, no. So I have to do something here that's not happening. If we go to terminal. Oh, maybe let's do this. We'll do get pull. Maybe what happens is that it creates, does it create something locally here? Local function projects, function app dev container. Huh, it didn't exactly create everything the way I wanted it to get created. Now I'm going to delete this other one real quick. So that one we don't need. This is the last app. Do you want to delete it? Okay, so the question though is why inside of here deploy, configure it, delete it, open in portal, browse website is I need to do more than, I guess. If I right click on this, create function app, which is what I did. And let's try one more time. Let's just say test Azure GitHub. Now what does it ask next? MP9. So what is it doing though? That's the question. If we go to this, does it create files locally, or what does it actually do? Creating app, ESP test, creating storage accounts. Yeah, so something is getting screwy here. Now, if I right click on this, deploy to function app, what I don't know is where is this? Where is this? Return hello. It may have a universal structure here. If I look at the host, here's this information. So it says it's successfully created it. Look at the output. So what did it do? Created resource group, created this. But what did it do locally? Deleted this. Use logs. Somehow I'm not seeing where it's putting this data. We have this function ignore. We have GitHub. We have this. If we go here, we have files. There are no files. If we look at this, files, there are no files. Oh, wait, what's this? If we look at the other one, files, there's just host application settings. These are the settings. Refresh, deployments. Create function app in Azure. Very interesting. There's something strange going on here. So what I could do is I could just do this. I could say get rm-rf local this. So we've nuked that. And we say git commit deleting function. But there could be some kind of a conflict. Let's push that. And now I'm going to go back to this. And I'm just going to clean everything up. So I'm going to delete this one here. And then I'm going to delete this one here. There we go. Perfect. So we got these both. Refresh here. And we got this. Okay, so now if we say get pull, local function project, let's say get status, let's rm-rf local function project. So we got everything nuked here locally. Let's do it one more time. So let's say create function app in Azure. We'll call this tests GitHub Azure. There we go. Use Python 3.9. Change. There we go. We're going to use this US East. So what does it actually do? Does it create files on disk or not? That's what I would assume that it would create some kind of thing on disk here locally, but I don't know. And so while this thing is building, we can refresh it. So this is going to be test GitHub Azure. And if we go back to this function app here, there's nothing so far. Creating new function app. So we see this. Now what I'm curious about is what is here. So there's nothing though. There's nothing here that I can work with. And if I click on new file, new folder, we refresh it, there's nothing. So I must have to do some kind of configure deployments, deploy. What happens if I click on that? It does a deploy, but what does that even mean if there's no code here? Let's just do a deploy. Let's see what happens. Oh, the path doesn't exist. Well, exactly. So why does the path not exist? Open in portal, view properties, subscriptions, virtual path. Very strange. I'm really not sure why this integration seems to be acting funky here. Deployments, logs, files. And we look at files here. Connect to GitHub repository. Refresh. Configure deployment source. So I don't see why it's not showing up in there, but I guess what I could do is we could go to this functions here and I could create it in here. And what happens if I just do this? What if I just say HTTP trigger, but let's just say any editor in a function, navigate to an empty and do the following command. Oh, interesting. Func new. Func init. I see. To create a function, func new. Let's try that. So if I'm in here and I just type in func new, well, let's rebuild this container. Let's try that. Let's just rebuild. We'll rebuild container, and let's see if this environment's just not whacked out or something. Not exactly sure why that doesn't work. Now, I am curious if I go to this terminal here, does func init do anything? Let's try. What happens if I do that? Yeah. Oh, well, that works inside of here, which is definitely pretty interesting. So let's see though if it can work inside of this environment. I mean, I guess I could try both. We could do. Let's just see what happens. So if I say func new, um, and we just say for Python, there you go. Look, it writes this. It writes all this stuff. Oh, what kind of option we want to do? HTTP trigger. Let's call this hello cloud shell. There we go. So if we now look at the editor and we say hello cloud shell, see that we actually have a small little function right here, which is this. And then if we wanted to deploy it, oh, you can start it locally. So you can say func start. So let's try that. So say func start. And it does work. So the cloud shell does appear to work pretty well. What I'm curious though is why it doesn't appear to work as well for GitHub code spaces, but we'll see. And this is initializing. There we go. Host lock lease get local host. Port configure would be 35367. Not exactly sure. Well, I don't know if that's killed or not. Oh, kill one. Yeah. Anyway, looks like I can maybe get something running there, but I want to try it from here one more time to see if I can get this cooking. So we got this. We have function app, and if I go through here, why can't we do a function? See, we have no functions here. We have a function app. We have this. And if I say func, so not 100% sure why this thing is getting a little bit weird here. Unless I click on this, maybe. How about that? Look, see, this is very interesting. Create trigger func. It's not going to be that though. It's going to be create function. So let's close this one. So if I say create, and we say VS Code, in the Azure Functions panel, we want to do Azure Functions. Let's try it within here. Let's just do. Let's even try to go back to this. Azure Functions. Install or update Azure Functions core tools. Yeah, something's a little bit off here. Not exactly sure why this thing is not perfectly working. Um, there might be something. Start maybe. How about that? Is it that simple? You just do start, and then you can say start streaming logs. View properties. Yeah, for whatever reason, can't seem to figure out how to do it from there. But I guess what I could do is just be sloppy, and just to get past this is go to develop in portal, go to trigger, create it. At least I've got one going, and then at this point, at least it's deployed. Then I can say get function URL, right? And we can copy this, and then I can actually just test the trigger. So we can go back here. This was triggered. Pass in a name, query string. Say Bob. Query string. Pass the name of the query string or in the request body for. So it's kind of a little bit of a bummer that in order to invoke it, well, let's go back to our environment here. If I refresh, there should be a function here now. Maybe that's how you have to do it. You have to create it there first. Can we? Oh, there we go. So we can execute the function. Oh, enter request body. There we go. Return. Okay. Executed. Response. Hello Azure. There we go. So we can do that. Now, what I'm curious about is if we still look here, if there's a way to get at that to just download this, browse it. There has to be a way to download this function and tweak it or do something with it. Application files, read only. Here we go. There we go. Function. That's what I'm thinking about. So why does it say read only though? Why can't I edit this application? That would be kind of cool to figure out. So if I wanted to add a print statement, what happens? It won't let me do it. If it says nope, I'll put debug terminal. And if I do ls, very interesting stuff here. I was able to do this before, but if we look at properties, here's all the properties. Let me see if I can Google this. So we can say edit Azure function in Visual Studio Code. So what do we do? What am I missing here? So Python, we do that, create a function. See, this is what's weird is that the functions extension, so you need to install Azure Functions Core Tools version 2 or later. I think I do have that. And then you go, maybe I'm in the wrong tool. Let's go to the extensions, Azure Functions. I wonder if this is not the right tool. If there's another tool here. Maybe it is though, I don't know. But if I click on this here, we can say create function. We can say test2. We want to do version 4. We want to do Python. Let's do Python 3.8. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know, because I don't know if this even has Python 3.9. 3.10. Interesting. Not exactly sure why this is acting wacky here. But if we go back to this one more time, it says we do that, trigger. So things are a little bit different, I think, because it's in Visual Studio Code. So anyway, it's always good to have something not work, because it means that you're learning something. You can also do Azure Extension Pack, which is what I'm using. Yeah, I think I'm using the wrong tool. So I don't know how to tell the difference, though, because is there a different tool here? What is, oh, look, it is the wrong tool. See, I'm using resource. Okay, there we go. That's why. Wow. So I, I was using the wrong tool, because look, we can click this. Aha. And we can say that was the whole problem. Now we're talking. Now we can go to Python here. We can do Python 3.8. There we go. We want to overwrite it. Now we're talking. And then we can go through here. We can do all this really cool stuff. Import app. Wow. And you can do all this kind of stuff. So next time, I think this will be a good README to add, which is, I'll just make a note, which is that lesson 2, I totally got lost. Lesson 2, gotcha. Was totally confused between Azure resources and workspace, between Azure resources extension and Azure functions. You must use Azure functions to edit code. That was a problem. So lesson 3, when I get back to this, it will use that. We'll say lesson 3, use Azure functions to build out examples. There we go. So good to know. It's always good to have a problem and find out why you had a problem. Git add everything, git add, get ignore, git commit, adding progress. I'm sure someone has a similar problem that I had at some point. So that's why I do this. All right. See you in a couple weeks.